Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in Greenville, and you can find all of my contact information in the show notes if you need to reach out to me for any of your real estate needs. And just a reminder, as always, please like the show, okay? If you're on YouTube, hit the little like button, just takes a second. If you're on Spotify, leave a rating or a review. Apple Podcasts, same thing. But most importantly, on all the platforms, please subscribe to make sure that you don't miss future episodes. And also, if you need a realtor, my contact information, as I already said, is in the show notes. All right. Today, I've got to go through this quick because I have a bunch of stuff going on right now. I've actually got a closing that I've got to get to here in just a few minutes. So that takes priority, but I always come out with weekly content for you guys, and I'm not going to miss this week. And so I'm in my office right now. If you notice a slightly different background than normal, if you notice I'm kind of looking more down at you versus being at eye level, that's because I'm not in my studio like I normally am. But hopefully you guys can hear everything just fine. And hopefully if you're actually watching on YouTube, you can see me just fine as well. And don't feel too intimidated by me looking down at you. That's just the angle of my camera at the moment. But I want to talk to you guys about what you need to know when moving to the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson metro area, the Upstate, what we call the Upstate of South Carolina. What are some things that you need to know? And I've got 15 different things. I could have kept going, but again, we're short for time here. So we got 15 different things that we're going to talk about for people moving to the Upstate of South Carolina. And this is going to be wide ranging, dealing some things with real estate, some things more with just broader, just questions that I get or comments that I hear from people that move here. So it'll just be a wide ranging kind of show. But let's dive right in with number one. I have, and this is something a lot of people don't realize. You'll need a variety of clothes for roughly 3 to 4 seasons. Okay. Now, a bone that I have to pick with some of the people that are down here is there's an insistence that yes, we do in fact have 4 distinct seasons in Greenville. I would push back on that a little bit because the spring season here sometimes doesn't happen. Okay, let's just be honest. Sometimes we skip straight from winter to summer. And spring and fall here are very similar in terms of temperatures, in terms of just how it feels. Even in terms of rain, there's not like it's not like spring is really rainy and fall is really dry. It's not like that. But there are times when it gets very cold. Usually we have, a week, maybe 2 weeks when it goes down into the 20s or even colder. And of course we have a stretch usually of a few weeks where it is 90 or above. We've been several weeks now like that. This summer. Usually the month of July is super duper hot. Usually the first half of August is super hot. Although actually last week we had a stretch that was pretty cool. But it's gotten back up to being super hot again. And then towards the end of July, you start to feel that fall coolness start to settle back in. I'm looking forward to that. But be prepared. You will need clothing for 3 to 4 seasons. It's not Florida. Okay. It's not Florida, where you're going to be wearing shorts 11 months out of the year. In Greenville, you will have to have jackets, hoodies, and the like for 3, 4, 5 months of the year. And you just need to be prepared for that. Number 2 on this list. Under no circumstances should you try to get by without pest control. Listen, if you're living in a house, if you own your house, you're going to have to get pest control. And here's the thing. Termites, you have to do termite treatments. I recommend termite bonds. Highly, highly recommend that you do that. You don't want your house eaten by termites. Don't do that. And similar, there are other creatures like that, like powder post beetles and the like. Make sure that you have a pest control company that is treating for wood destroying organisms like that. But also we've got those palmetto bugs. Okay. And people from out of town think they're roaches. Yeah, they're basically in the same family, but these are a different creature altogether. They're humongous. They're like 1.5 inches long. Under very strange weather conditions, they will fly, which is very disturbing. It's like the stuff of horror movies. But mostly they just walk around like little terrorists thinking that they own the place. Um, and in addition to that, we have a lot of ants as well. And I'm not trying to make it sound like this is the Amazon rainforest. This is just the reality of living in the South. There's bugs, stink bugs as well. Now the stink bugs, whatever, they're easy to get rid of. The palmetto bugs and the ants, my understanding is they take basically the same sort of treatment to basically keep out. And so that's what I recommend doing. Keep all of these different things out. Hire a pest control company. Don't skimp on that. Okay. You might think that you can DIY it. Maybe you can. I have found that I can't. I hire it out and I am totally good to go with that. Number 3 on here. Older homes will likely have power lines that are above ground. The newer homes, they bury those utilities. All utilities are buried. But in the older homes, you need to be prepared. There's going to be above ground power. That power is going to be connected probably to your roof gable and then down to your meter from there. And that's just a thing. Like they're not going to come in and bury all these power lines at this point. Like, so be prepared, pay attention to the trees around you. Pay attention to critters that might be nesting around those power lines, or might even be gnawing at them for whatever reason. That's pretty rare, but it can happen. And just pay attention. All it takes is one bad storm to, I discovered a few years ago that the main power connector at my house, it was like really, it was hanging on a piece of my gable that was really loose. I had to resecure that. And so that's something that you need to be aware of. And I've had to cut back limbs and whatnot just to make sure that something doesn't fall down and pull that power line off and result in me having no power. Because I experienced what no power was like during Hurricane Helene, and I don't like it. I like having power. Number 4, homes might be on public water and public sewer. Okay. Obviously, if you're in the city, it's going to be public water, public sewer, but you might also be on public water and septic, or you might be on well water and septic if you get out into more rural areas. And sometimes very close to each other, there are 2 homes that are on 2 very different things. And here's the thing are one of these things better than the other? Not inherently. Some people, all they want is public utilities. And some people, all they want is to be off the grid. In fact, I just showed a house earlier today where a question came up of whether there might be well water somewhere on the property because they wanted that in the event that there was some kind of a disruption in utilities. They have that well water accessible. I would say all of these different types of water and sewer options, they all have upsides and downsides. If you're not comfortable or familiar with one or the other, that's okay. I can work through that with you and I can help you to understand it. The least common out of all these is the well water, right? That's typically in a really, really rural area, mountainous area, whatever, where they just don't have the ability to bring public water in. But sewer and septics, I mean, you could be somewhere where you think it's going to be sewer and it's septic or vice versa. And you just need to be prepared for that and to understand the upsides and the downsides. Number 5, foundation. This question comes up a lot. What kind of foundations do you have? Well, we have a few. Obviously, most of the new construction right now is slab foundation. But we also have crawl space foundations, the nicer homes, the older homes, homes in more hilly areas. They're going to have crawl spaces. And then we also have basement foundations as well. Although I would say that the vast majority of basement homes built the past 70 years are walkout basements. So it's not like, up north where you have that, go down below ground, you're just like completely below grade. Most of the basement homes that have been built the past 70 years are walkout style. And that can confuse some people. But especially if it's a finished basement, it is almost certainly going to be a walkout style basement, or maybe a basement that leads into the garage, something like that. And if you really want a basement home, just be prepared. If you're moving from another area, you might not find the kind of basement homes that are in your area. And you know, as far as the types of, to get away from the basement part, we're talking about slabs versus crawl spaces. Which one of those is better? I get that question all the time. I personally don't have a preference. It really depends on a lot of factors. Obviously, if you're going to be renovating your home, it's much better to be on a crawl space. But a crawl space requires maintenance. You have to have vapor barriers down. There's more likely, greater likelihood the termites get in there. There is more likelihood of mold getting in there. So there's all sorts of things that a crawl space has that a slab is just simpler. But there are some people that are anti-slab people. They think they're not structurally sound, whatever the case may be. I don't necessarily agree with all of that. I've lived in all of these different types of homes, and I've sold all of these different types of homes to different people. So if you have a strong opinion, that's fine. But different people have differing opinions on these things. Number 6, not real estate related, but something you should know is that people carry guns around here. Okay, we are an open carry state. You can get a concealed weapons permit down here, and that gives you so that gives you the ability to open carry. I shouldn't have said we're an open carry state. We're a state where you can carry without a permit. I think I might have used the wrong lingo there for a second. But people do carry guns around here. You can carry without a permit. It's concealed. Ironically, if you get then a concealed weapons permit, then you can open carry, kind of backwards, but whatever. But just be prepared for that. This is a Second Amendment state. Greenville and Spartanburg are Second Amendment cities. And you're going to see that, and you're either going to be very comfortable or very uncomfortable with it, one or the other. But for the most part, the gun owners around here are very responsible. And I have not personally ever run into an issue where I felt threatened by anyone with any kind of firearms or anything like that. Number 7, the drivers are bad, and I am not going to stop talking about it. I've talked about it a lot on this show. Drivers here are really bad. Okay. And listen, I talked to people from all around the country that moved to the Greenville area, and they all agree the drivers are bad. Okay. And I've had some people that love to say, no, it's all of the out of town folks coming in here. They're the bad drivers. Listen, I've done a lot of driving today. I've been up to Landrum. I've been down to Hickory Tavern. Okay. That's a wide range of the Upstate. I basically saw from the North Carolina border all the way down to basically the edge of the Upstate of South Carolina, depending on how you think about the Upstate of South Carolina. So I've traversed the entire area today. I was behind some of the slowest drivers the whole time I was driving. They were all pickup trucks. Now, are you going to tell me that someone from New York City moved down here with a pickup truck? I've driven in New York City. There are very, very few pickup trucks in New York City. It's not enough room for it. And so all these tropes that it's all these people moving from New York and Chicago and whatnot, that they're causing all of these bad driving and all the bad driving and whatnot. I don't believe it, because every time I see a bad driver, there are some tells that they are locals. Okay. I'll just leave it at that. And one of the things I'll just say real quick, drives me crazy. Can people just stop putting on their hazards when, visibility is bad? When we get a really bad downpour of rain, and this isn't just specifically a South Carolina thing, this is a South thing. People put their hazards on in order to make it more obvious, more visible where they are to other people. The problem is those hazards are the same lights that are your turn signals. And so if those people ever want to turn, you don't know that they have their turn signal on because their hazards are on. I'd rather them not have their hazards on, but be able to use their turn signals. And that's just another pet peeve of mine. But I digress. Just be prepared. Be very careful driving around here. And don't even think about going out when the weather is bad. I've already said there's people with their hazards. That's one thing. If we get snow around here, the city, the county, everything shuts down. You don't want to be out there driving with Southerners in the snow. Trust me, I've seen some awful, awful things happen when people try to go out in the snow. Number 8, we had some major events like Fall for Greenville, which is a one of the largest food festivals in the U.S. Euphoria, another food festival. Artisphere, one of the largest art festivals in the U.S. And they're all fantastic, fantastic festivals. They draw huge crowds to the area, and in fact, that would be my biggest complaint is that there's so many crowds. You have to really be strategic if you don't just want to get inundated by the crowds. But on the flip side, I'll just say just not everything in this area is great. Greenville's still a smaller metro area, as is Spartanburg, and as a result, we're still, in my opinion, working to draw more talent for concerts, comedy shows, etc. We do get good talent. It's just not as consistent as like in a bigger city. Like Atlanta constantly has great concerts, great comedy shows, well-known comedians and the like. Greenville, it's more of the exception than the rule. But I do think that that's going to continue to improve. I went, what was it, last year, Lincoln Park came to Greenville for the first time. That's a band that I listened to a lot in high school, still listen to them. And so, and they're a huge band to this day. And so, more and more, I think Nate Bargatze came to Greenville recently. He's been here a few times. Pretty well-known comedian, has several Netflix specials. So we're getting more of that. We need more. But we do have some really, really fantastic outdoor events like the ones I mentioned before. Walkability, number 9 here. The walkable, interesting parts of downtown Greenville, I think, and this actually might surprise you. If you know Greenville, you probably already think, okay, downtown Greenville is super walkable. Actually, it's actually in the process of expanding dramatically. We're about to have that the County Square project is going to be a humongous expansion to the walkability of the city. The Gateway project, look these up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't have time to get into them today. But the Gateway project over there by the Bon Secours Wellness Arena is going to create an entirely new walkable area of downtown. Downtown is about to, the walkable parts of downtown in the next 10 years are going to, it's probably going to expand by about 50%. And that's not a joke. I've seen data on that. That's insane. Okay. And I just had some friends that visited Greenville after having gone to college here years and years ago, and they hadn't really seen downtown. I think it'd been 7 years since they had last seen downtown. And they were amazed. They were just like, this just feels like a big city now. And I don't, me, I've lived here for 22 years. Like you don't realize how much it's changed, right? It's just changing all the time. But people that have gone away and come back many, many years later are just like, yeah, there's a lot of changes. And I'm saying if you leave and come back in 10 years, you will not recognize the city. And I think it's going to be for a good thing. I know some people don't like that. They don't like growth. They don't like changes. But these are good changes. And I think that that these changes will spread the concentration of downtown as well, so that there's more parking, less crowded sidewalks, all of that. Not that, I mean, for a city, for downtown, Greenville has great parking ability. And usually the sidewalks are not crazy unless it's, one of those major events. But I think it's going to get even better here in the upcoming years. I kind of referenced this before, but number 10 here, you should be aware of. People are very uptight about growth right now. Housing developments, data centers, land sales, etc. You just need to be aware of that, particularly if you're looking for land. Okay. If you're looking to purchase land, understand that the locals are going to be all up in your business. If you talk to a neighbor, they're going to be like, what are you going to use this land for? And if you're like, oh, I'm going to build a few houses on it, you've already said too much. Don't say that. People don't want to hear that. There's an anti-growth sentiment right now throughout the Upstate because of all the changes, which I've already alluded to here. Unfortunately, you can't stop the train of growth. And if you do, what you get is much, much worse than growth. So it's going to keep happening. People are going to keep moving down here. It's a beautiful city, great climate, great restaurants, great things to do, everything. So just be prepared. Like, you know what I don't like to hear is I don't like to hear people move here and then say we need to stop the growth. I heard that from someone that moved here from Marietta, Georgia, a few years ago, and like right after he moved here, he was like, "We need to stop the growth." It's just like, I'm sorry, but if this is the problem, you're a part of that problem, right? So it's kind of an absurd thing, and unfortunately, it's sentiment that is pretty widespread right now among a lot of people. Number 11, to go back to downtown Greenville, downtown Spartanburg, it's really not easy to buy a house in a walkable part of either of those cities, downtown Greenville, downtown Spartanburg. Um, there's just not a whole lot of houses, right? There's townhomes, there's condos, there's apartments, but most of the detached houses are on the outskirts of these downtowns, and they might be bikeable, but there's not a ton of walkable detached houses. There are exceptions, right? There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, if you're looking to move down here and you're like, I want to buy a house in downtown Greenville, how many like big downtowns do you know where you can just like buy a house, right? The ship has already sailed in Greenville. It's condos, townhomes, apartments, with just a handful of exceptions. It's not that we don't have houses in downtown, but they've just mostly been converted to commercial real estate at this point. So again, that's just something you need to be prepared for. Cater your expectations. If you're really hoping to be downtown, have a realistic viewpoint on what sort of home you will end up in downtown. Number 12, Greenville is a big cycling town. Okay. And this is, I think kind of the word is out on this. I don't think this is going to be a shock to most people, but it's a big cycling town. If you like to cycle, if you like to bike, Greenville's a great place to do it. We've got mountains in northern parts of the counties, Greenville County, Spartanburg County, Pickens County, all up there. Great hilly mountainous areas if you like that. We've got various bike trails throughout the area that are fantastic. They're nice and level. And the Greenville has in particular, but also some of the other towns, Spartanburg and some of the other ones as well, have been good about putting in bike lanes as well. That's been become more and more increasingly common. And you may not know this, but one of the best cyclists in U.S. history owns a hotel here. Not ironically, called Hotel Domestique, very intentionally called Hotel Domestique. That's a cycling reference. And it's owned by George Hink. I can never pronounce the name right. Hincapie, I believe is how it's pronounced. I always pronounce it wrong. But he co-owns the Hotel Domestique, great little boutique hotel in Travelers Rest right up near the North Carolina border. And it's themed kind of, it has a few different themes, but cycling is one of the themes there. They have a bicycle concierge, and just a really cool spot. If you like to cycle, this might be the town for you. Number 13, traffic. Okay, we already talked about the bad driving. Let's talk about traffic for a second. If you come from a small town area, you will think the traffic's bad. You will. That's just the reality of the situation. My wife is from Dothan, Alabama. Traffic here is way worse than Dothan, Alabama. But if you come from a large city, you'll think traffic here is awesome. If you come here from Atlanta, you're going to be amazed. You'll be like, there is no traffic here. You come here from Chicago, there is no traffic. New York, forget it. No traffic in Greenville. Okay. And so the reality is that most traffic it's really not bad, in my opinion. As someone who I grew up as a kid in New Jersey, I've lived here my entire adult life. Traffic in New Jersey was 100 times worse. Okay. It took me an hour to go like 10 miles to school every morning. I went to a private school. You just don't have that here. You don't have anywhere unless there's some kind of an accident or something where it takes 10 miles or it takes an hour to go 10 miles. However, there are a few little arteries where traffic is bad. The Wade Hampton, all of the traffic lights on Wade Hampton. There's a little stretch of I-85 that, basically around exits 56 to 60 on Interstate 85, traffic is frequently bad. One direction, the other direction, whatever. Going into downtown at 5 p.m. Or out of downtown at 5 p.m. That's another one. There's very strategic things like that, but nothing like the big cities. To just be aware of that as well. And again, where you come from will make a difference in how you perceive that. Number 14, this comes up a lot. people don't understand that home renovations down here can really be fast and loose. And the reality is that most people that are flipping houses or maybe even living in their home and doing a renovation, they don't pull permits. And the county kind of turns a blind eye to that. Appraisers don't care. They don't factor in whether permits were pulled. And you don't have to bring a home up to code in order to sell it. And so when people go into a renovated home, sometimes they have expectations of all sorts of documentation and whatnot. And, oh, well, all of this needed to be brought up to code and it wasn't. And it's just like, technically, it didn't need to happen. Now, does that mean the county likes it that way? No, not necessarily, but the county is not cracking down in a way that would be required in order to force everyone to pull permits and to bring things up to code and all of that. And so for the time being, it does feel for a lot of people like it's a little bit fast and loose when home renovations are done. That doesn't mean it's done poorly. That's where inspectors come into play and all of that. That's where, I have an eye for, because I flip houses. I have an eye for, okay, where corners cut, does this look like they've done a good job, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can't just rule out a house on the basis that there's not documentation on the renovation that was done, or else you're going to be ruling out every single house that's been updated. All right, number 15, last but not least. There are a few different types of houses, and this is helpful for you to understand the area from a real estate standpoint. So there's mill houses, right? Greenville, Spartanburg were a huge textile hub for a long time. And so there's little mills all over the place that are no longer functioning. A lot of them have been converted into like co-work spaces or like condos, lofts, et cetera, et cetera. But around those, they built these mill villages. And that's one of the core identifying features of real estate around here. These mill houses all over the place. Some areas they've been extensively renovated. Other areas they're not renovated at all, maybe doing not so well. But that's one of the types of house that you see a lot. Another one that you see a lot, just the custom home style suburbs of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. These are, you go into a nice area with mature trees. You've got the brick ranches. There might be some split levels. There might be some other styles of homes, 2-story, and all the homes look different. Maybe there will be, okay, that home on that side of the neighborhood is basically the same style as this home on the other side of the neighborhood, but it's not like in the old days and it's not like now where they do all the homes, they look just about exactly the same. Those suburbs in the 60s, 70s, and 80s tended to be more custom. In fact, a lot of times the homes were built by different builders. And so that's another style that you see that's very popular right now. People love those because it tends to be bigger yards, mature trees, mature neighborhoods, well-built homes, all of that. The third one that we have here is the cookie cutter suburbs, but the ones that have the larger yards that were built in the 90s and the aughts, as they say, the zeros, the aughts, the 2000s. Those can be great options as well for a lot of people. Like there's a lot of really, really nice neighborhoods that fit that category, that were built in the 90s and the aughts. And so you'll see those all over the place. Those tend to also be, neighborhoods that have more mature trees. There you'll start to see more like vinyl siding and things of that nature versus brick with the older homes. But a lot of great options to choose from there. Then as you get into those that were built in the 2010s and 2020s, now you're dealing with the cookie cutter small yard houses, right? The homes that are making everyone angry right now. All the developments where postage stamp lots with cookie cutter houses, but they're necessary, in my opinion, for housing affordability. Right? I mean, how many people would not be able to own a home if it wasn't for those neighborhoods? So while they don't look very aesthetic, are they necessary for the general public? I would argue that they are. The fifth type of house that you'll oftentimes see is the old wealth house. Okay, these are the homes that were built for the wealthy years and years ago. In some cases, many years ago, in some cases, maybe more like 40, 50, 60 years ago, right? These tend to be have tons and tons of character. Um, Maybe are updated. If it's a really old home, it probably has been updated. If it's like a 30 to 40-year-old home, it might have some updating needed. Some of that old, some of that ugly, bright red wallpaper and things like that. Um, Bright yellow gold wallpaper. You see that sometimes. But that was a display of wealth back 40 years ago. Now, not so much. But you'll see those homes as well. And then, of course, last but not least, the new wealth house. And I'm not getting into every single house category, and I'm kind of creating these categories myself. But the new wealth, the homes that have been built in more recent years that are more trendy, more sleek, more minimal. If you can say more minimal, more minimalistic. And you see these propping up all over the place now. Very, 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 very nice, but stylistically might not be for everyone. They don't have the kind of character of the old wealth homes, but they have that pizzazz. That very HGTV pizzazz. Of the right now they're making all those homes white within white and black, right? The black gutters, the black roof, the black gable, and then the black door, and then white siding, white hardy siding, all of that, or maybe white brick, all of that. And so those are, very loosely speaking, the different styles of houses that you will find in this area. There's a lot more than just that, but that gives you kind of a sense of kind of what to expect if you're looking at houses in this area. So that's it. I was able to knock this out in about a half hour, so I'm pretty happy with that. 15 things in a half hour. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please contact me if you need a realtor in this area. My contact info is in the show notes. Please like, rate, review, subscribe to the show if you don't want to miss any future content, and I'll talk to you guys again next time.